It's like we are live, and we've got a couple people already in the chat room. We've got Humberto from Puerto Rico. We've got Frank, D&D Auto Detailing 404 Not Found. So welcome to those of you who are joining us live, and for those of you that are going to be watching after the fact. But I'm Chelsea from Attention to Details. You know me, and this is Kelly Jones from Royal Reflections. And I've been friends with Kelly for quite some time now. We've never really met, but we have had a wonderful friendship via Facebook. There's not a whole lot of female detailers within this industry, but there's more of us than you realize, I think. But we tend to kind of find one another in different Facebook groups and support one another. And Kelly has been someone that I've looked up to for quite some time, not only for her faith, but for the successes that she has had in all of her business endeavors, because you've got a lot going on, don't you, Kelly?
Thank you.
But one thing for me that as a growing detailing business and as a mom who kind of works from home, I have always struggled with the business side of things as far as management, and that is one of your strong suits. And so I actually reached out to Kelly and had some questions for you as far as tips on how to help manage your business, how to grow your business. And I thought that this would be a great discussion to have with other people who are like-minded, who are either wanting to start a detailing business, new to starting a detailing business, or really any business, because the tips that you have can be applied to really any business. So, Kelly, I welcome you. Thank you for being here. And I'm excited to discuss these things with you and to learn from you.
Thank you so much, Chelsea, for having me. This is such a blessing. I'm really excited about this. So let me give you just a quick backstory on myself. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Kelly Jones, and I own Showroom Auto Detailing and Royal Reflections and a couple other businesses that I'll get into talking about a little bit later. But I started out as a lender for the government. I specialized in home loans, in government loans, which would be like FHA, VA for veterans, and a lot of government type products. So I had 13 years of experience, almost 13 years, of doing lending, and I specialized in credit counseling as well. So I've designed a program of my own with basically all of that information that I learned over those years of lending, because there is a real gap, I think, in society where so many people don't understand their credit. And so you can't really build a business if you don't have good credit, right? You really have to start there. And I always teach that even in my detailing shop when I'm training detailers and even bringing on new employees. I say, look, everybody wants to jump right into ceramic coating and right into paint correction. And I'm like, no, we have to walk before we run, right? It's the same thing when you're starting and developing a business. You got to walk before you can run. Everybody wants to run and they want this like overnight success, right? And I always say running a business or building a business, building a solid, successful, long-term business, it's like not a microwave. It's a crock pot type of a thing. It's not going to happen in 30 seconds or, overnight, basically. And there's a lot of books and misleading information out there that say, build a business in overnight, and I really don't think that happens. Maybe there's somebody that could prove me wrong on that, but so back to the lending. So I did that for quite some time. I was always like top 10 in the nation. Whenever I put something into something, I give it my whole heart and I really try to give it my all. And I really try to stress that to people that work with me, employees, people that come to my trainings. You have to have your whole heart into whatever you're doing, whether you're cutting hair, you're building custom cabinets, you're detailing cars. You have to be all in, right? You got to give it your all. You got to enjoy what you're doing. Otherwise, at the end of the day, it's not going to be successful, I don't think, So I learned a lot about that in lending because I dealt with so many people in different types of businesses, different avenues, and they all seem to have this common problem. They didn't understand their credit. They didn't understand how to build their credit, what tears down their credit, how they were ruining their credit, why they didn't qualify for this loan, all that kind of information. So that's how I kind of came up with this, the Credit Builders program, basically just like 101 on credit. Why do you need to know about your credit? Why is it important? And so there's that whole thing. Well, then the big economic crisis happened in 2007, 2008, and the lending institution fell apart along with a lot of other businesses and industries back and during that time. And I ended up losing my job. talk about, being from top 10 in the nation to writing off a lot of loans, making a lot of money, to literally losing your job. It was devastating. At the time, I didn't think it was that bad, because I'm like, I have all this experience, all this knowledge. I'm just going to send my resumes out and I'll get something else right away. Well, that didn't happen. I wasn't getting a call from anybody. I mean, everybody was doing the same thing across the board, layoffs, closing branches, all kinds of crazy stuff was happening. So that was devastating. And, so when I talk about these different programs and these classes that I've designed, it's because I have personally experienced every single thing I'm going to talk about. Okay. From, losing my job, being on unemployment, not being able to find work, having go through a bad divorce, filing bankruptcy. I was a single mom with 4 kids, like literally struggling, not a dollar in the bank account, having to get food stamps. My kids hate me to tell the story. My family, I was so embarrassed about it for so long. And now I'm all about, like, embrace your journey, because I really believe that all these things made me who I am today. Right. And for the longest time, I was so scared to be like, I don't want anybody to know this awful stuff that's happened to me. Who wants to admit they've been through a bankruptcy? Who wants to admit they lost their job and had to, depend on literally government assistance? Who wants to talk about losing everything that you've worked for? Nobody wants to talk about that ugly stuff. We all want to talk about the success, the mountaintop.
Yeah.
Well, let's face it, when you're down in the valley and you're rock bottom, that's where you learn all these valuable lessons, and you really have to embrace that. You have to embrace that. And that's where I really, kind of got into God and religion and my faith and everything like that, because I'm telling you what, you really find out who's there for you when you lose everything.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, there's not many people there for you. And that's when, it got so bad. I mean, contemplating ending my life, literally. I mean, I hate to talk about that kind of stuff too, but it was just literally losing everything. Hope. My kids would come home and say, we hate you, because my kids were used to Disney vacations and the best everything. We had the best of everything, and then all of a sudden you don't have nothing, and we're not taking vacations. We're not buying those jeans. We're not getting our hair done. We're not doing nothing. And, you can't even explain it until you go through it. You really can't. You can't even understand until you've been through all that stuff. So, when that dark time was in my life, I remember the day I was down on my hands and knees praying to God, like, give me something. Like, I need some sort of hope. What can I do with my life? There's got to be some sort of a purpose here. I don't want to live like, what is this teaching me? There's always a lesson in everything, right? And so I was literally praying one day, and this commercial came on TV, and it was like, be your own boss, set your own schedule. It was all about, just being in charge of your income, unlimited income potential. And this was like speaking to me after I said this prayer. And I'm like, is this a sign? And it was a commercial on TV for auto detailing 101. There was a class out in Chicago, and I'm like, auto detailing? What? I can't detail a car. I wear a suit and heels every day,
Yeah.
And so to make a long story short, I got into detailing. I started showroom auto detailing. 2010 was the year, actually. I got my DBA January 21st, 2010. So that started this whole new learning journey of, I knew all about lending and credit and, all that kind of stuff, but I didn't know how to start a business or open a business. And in 2009, 2010, there wasn't the internet and YouTube and all these things like we have access to now. Even now, I just opened a brand new business. It's getting ready to open. I'm opening a daycare center. It's called the ARC Academy. I'm super excited, Christian-based daycare. So as a matter of fact, I'm going through this whole cycle again. So I started showroom auto detailing in 2010. My product line, Royal Reflections, we'll talk about that a little bit later. That launched to the public in 2020. I opened an axe throwing lounge in 22 this year. Actually, March of 22, I opened Rebel Axe. And now in 2023, my daycare center will be open. My Christian daycare center will be opened hopefully by January of 23. So I've been through this 4 times, and I don't have any partners. It's all me, 100% owned. I don't have anybody else like guiding me, instructing me, other than, basically my Bible and things I've learned along the way. So I journal all these things. So it's the same back in 2010 as it is right now on opening these other businesses. And what I needed to do was I needed to go get a DBA, doing business as, over at the courthouse. $10 it costs you, go and get a DBA. First thing I think anybody should do once you come up with a business idea. It doesn't matter if your business is, baking cakes or detailing cars, or, whatever industry you're in. The first thing you should do is go get a DBA. Right. So I did that and I was so excited. So I took this class. I came home. I ended up making up flyers on my Word document, just on my computer, just a flyer, auto detailing, and my phone number. And you know how you clip the bottom of the page where people can tell the numbers off. I went around and hung all those up around town. And I'll never forget, I got a call the next day. I put those at the oil change places, the restaurants, literally anywhere that had a little tack board that I could hang up these flyers after I took
the worst cars possible.
I was so scared because I was still, I gotta set the scene here. So I was still broke. I had no money. I had to borrow the money from my parents to take this detailing class. Okay. I come back. I didn't have money to go buy anything fancy. I used the old shop vac that was in the garage, Q-tips from my house, old toothbrushes. I cleaned cars with Dawn dish soap. That's all I had, and that's why my product line is such a passion for me too, because I started out cleaning everything with Dawn dish soap. That was all I used. But so I went around and I hung these flyers up because I knew I had to pound the pavement, right? I had to get the word out that I wanted business. I wanted to do this. And I got a call the next day and I had my DBA. That's all I knew how to get, because you go to the courthouse, you get a DBA, doing business as, and they say, here's your DBA paper. Have a good day.
Yeah. There's
what do I do now?
There's no dummies guide. Well, there is actually a dummies guide to business, but it doesn't automatically get purchased when you get the business license. We're figuring out all of this as we go, and it's exhausting sometimes.
Yeah, there's no checklist. There's no nothing. So at that time I thought, oh, cool, I got a DBA. I'm good to go. I'm in business, Well, a little to my knowledge, I was not even close, because I didn't have insurance. I didn't have a tax ID number. I had a whole bunch of stuff that I really needed to be doing. So a lot of this stuff, like I said, I learned it the hard way because I did go through an IRS audit. Talk about a nightmare. People joke about these audits and stuff like that. I've been through it. It is a nightmare. So I've learned from that. So everything I learned from going through that audit is how I run my business now. And unfortunately, we sometimes have to learn the hard way on things. But after I went through that, I knew exactly what I needed to do going forward. And that's why I feel like that stuff is really important to teach others, because that is an expensive lesson if it happens.
So let me interrupt you real quick. So you were audited. How many years into your business were you audited, and how far back did you have to go?
I think I was only about 2 years or so into my business, so it wasn't that old.
And
so this is what
you were raking in the dough at 2 years.
Not at all. But you know what? I wasn't doing anything right. It could have been disastrous. I couldn't imagine being 10 years into business and getting audited and being in the same boat I was in before, because I really didn't know. And I told them that. I was like, but they don't really have a lot of sympathy. They're there to do their job. And just saying, I don't know, and trying to act like you're ignorant to the fact basically of how to run a business, then you shouldn't be running a business. That was basically their response. If you don't know what you're doing, then you shouldn't be running a business. And I was like, oh Lord, this is not what I need. So I had to end up getting a lawyer. It was a disaster, but I learned a lot going forward. And I want to talk about some of that stuff too, that I think is super, super, super important when you're running a business. And this applies, like I said, to every business across the board. You have to know your income and your expenses, right? You have to track your income. So this is a basic example of what we do in my shop. Every dollar that we take in, to this day, we have a big spiral notebook. And I believe in old school stuff just because I've had so many problems with computer issues. I was literally getting audited, and the little bit of information I had on my computer, I couldn't pull it up. It was a disaster. So now I do everything pen to paper, old school. You can always pull that file or that pad of paper out or whatever. I keep an archive box every year too, because I saved for 13 years now. I save all of my paperwork for 13 years, my income, bank statements, my write-offs, my tax returns. Now I have employees, so I save all the time cards, pay stubs, because I hire minors under 18. We have a work program with local high schools. So I do a co-op program and I do a work-based
Cool.
learning program. Yeah, so I saved that information for 13 years, and not saying that they're going to go back that long, but I do know that they wanted uh, 7 years. If I was in business that couple years that I was in, they wanted 7 years of records, but I didn't have that because I did have my DBA that was stamped January 21st, 2010. So they knew that, I didn't have anything back before that.
Yeah.
And I did know enough. This is another thing really, really important. I don't want to get jumping all over the place, but it's super important to have your personal stuff separated from your business stuff. So as soon as you go to the courthouse and you get that DBA, you're doing business as your business name or your business permit or business license, you need to go to the bank and you take that DBA or that business license with you, and the bank will set you up. You go in and get a business checking, business savings, even business credit cards. Everything you do for your business should be separate than what you're doing under your own personal name. And that way it's super, super easy to keep track of things. You know what I mean? Your expenses.
Do you need a tax ID before you can get a business checking account, or can you just use it the DBA?
I was able to just use my DBA, but once you become like a LLC, or if you decide to become a corporation, or you set your business up as any of those other entities, which I highly recommend getting a CPA for that, a professional to help you do that paperwork. I have amazing CPAs that help me do that stuff. So yeah, they structure my LLC for me. They get my tax ID numbers, my EIN numbers, my state and federal for payroll taxes. They set all that up for me. So I personally do not do that, but that is one of the first things that you should do once you get a business license, or once you go in and get a checking and savings account. Some banks, I think, will let you put it under your social security number until you get an EIN number, which is the employer identification number. So it just depends. But I know once you become a LLC, you need to have paperwork to the bank for that, and the account switches over for a LLC classification. But different banks. I work with a credit union now. I absolutely love my credit union, so I use them for just about everything. They're fantastic.
So, if you were to give advice to someone who's wanting to start out with detailing, what kind of business structure would you recommend to start out with? Sole proprietorship, LLC? Like, we know the basic elements of it. Sole proprietorship is going to be a lot easier for you to acquire. You just use kind of your
Mm-hmm.
social security number,
Mm-hmm.
limit, but there's limited protection with that. Now, if
Right, right.
you're someone like me, like I have a home-based business. I'm working on like one car at a time. I'm not doing, five, six, however, how many vehicles can you even hold in your shop? Who knows? But, when you have a large amount of potential liabilities that could, be accrued against you, that's where LLC, I say, probably
Mm-hmm.
has the best advantage because of the protection. But what
Right.
would you recommend?
I usually recommend a LLC. I mean, you would have to talk to, your attorney or your CPA on that, but all of my businesses are LLCs. That every one of them are structured that way. And that brings me to the next thing, insurance. You need to have insurance. So many people are out there, and again, it applies to every single business out there. I don't care if you're building custom cabinets, you're detailing cars, you're whatever you're doing, you need to have insurance to protect yourself. The LLC protects you,
Your
to a
home.
certain extent, but that's not your garage keepers, your liability, these other types of insurances that are really important,
Yeah.
when
And
you're in business.
it's not very expensive either. I mean, from my standpoint, I think I pay $550 for the year, and I have $1 million in coverage, but I have garage
Mm-hmm,
keepers insurance and then limited liability. But it
mm-hmm.
protects me should there be, like, I think it's a $500 deductible. I was telling you on the phone the other day, I had a guy call me that he was like, I'm just starting out with my detailing business. I had a customer approach me and he has an Aston Martin and he wants me to wash it. And he's like, what do you think I should do? I don't have insurance. And I was like, walk away. I was like, can you cover any repairs to that vehicle if you damage it? And he's like, no. And I said, then don't work on the vehicle. Like, it's as simple as that.
Absolutely,
Because all it takes is
absolutely.
you to drop a bucket or slip and fall or something, chip the paint or scratch a wheel or something, that you're going to have to pay a very expensive repair. And unless you have that money saved up, like, it's just not worth it.
Mm-hmm. I hear it all the time too, and bless the people that reach out to me. I love to help others, and I really do love to try to give advice whenever I can. And I hear some absolutely crazy stories like that, and I'm like, why don't you have insurance? Well, it's so expensive. It's like, no, have you gotten a quote? Have you gotten a bid? Well, no, but I'm sure it's expensive. Well, it's not that expensive. What's expensive is when you have a major repair to a customer's vehicle and you've really screwed something up, that could cost you your whole business. I mean, honestly, who's got like you said, a $500 deductible, yeah, we can probably all cover that if we're in business, right? But a $10,000 paint job because you decided to buff somebody's car when you've never had any training on buffing, you decide to take a wheel to something with a wool pad and aggressive compound, like, you know what I mean? That's
Well, and
not.
let's face it, chemicals and electricity don't mix. And nowadays, vehicles are just far more and more electricity. I mean, from the radios and the touchscreen units, I mean,
Mhm.
you get water in there, you have to
Oh,
replace.
yeah.
I literally just had to deal with that the other day. I had a customer that said that I got water in between behind the radio, and that somehow was causing the clock in the mini cluster and the clock on the radio to not sync. And he contacted a dealership and they gave him a $1,500 quote to replace it. And I
Oh
mean,
my goodness.
we were able to work out a deal where I purchased a radio. I have a friend that actually worked for a dealership and we were able to replace it, but I had to pay that money out of my pocket versus an insurance claim. But that's still
Yeah.
like, that's, that was an issue that I had to deal with and we've made it
Mhm.
right. And the customer's really happy about it. But it was one of those things where I was like, ugh.
Yeah.
And it literally was because I cleaned a screen with glass cleaner. I didn't even spray it on it. It just got behind the button and it caused an electrical nightmare. So
Right.
lesson learned, but
Absolutely. And that's where integrity comes in too. Again, with every single business out there, you have to have integrity when things do happen because let's face it, it's not a perfect world. Chances are, in the busier you get and the more volume you do, the chances are these are used cars. I mean, some of these have a lot of miles, some of these have been through some real abuse,
mm,
and things happen. But that's where integrity comes in. You know what I mean? And you have to do the right thing. You can't block your customer at that point or not want to deal with it. I've actually had
yeah,
people tell me that, like, I think I'm just going to block this guy. I'm like, you can't do that.
no,
You have to put yourself in that person's shoes. Would you want your detailer to block you if they screwed something up on your car? No, you have to rectify it. You have to come to it's a relationship. You have to come to a mutual ground and what makes you both happy, and you have to do the right thing because at the end of the day, word of mouth is everything. Let's face it. It doesn't matter if you're in a great big city or a little tiny small town, the word of mouth spreads. And I mean, I really believe in tenfold. You put out good and good's going to come back to you 10 times over. You put out bad and bad's going to come back to you 100 times over. I mean,
mm,
I really believe that. And so, yeah, super important stuff.
yeah. So as far as I know, we have a lot that you wanted to discuss. How long were you mobile? And then,
I never started out mobile. I started out at my home garage. Okay,
okay, so
so
you were
I
like
just
me.
started out. Yeah, I started out in my home garage, and I detailed by myself for 7 years. Well, my young teenage daughters were at home, and so they'd help me. But I detailed by myself for 7 years. Yep, and I did car dealerships and personal cars and boats and RVs and all kinds of stuff for 7 years. And then winters here in Michigan are rough. We get really
Yeah.
slow. It's super seasonal because all my customers go south for the winter, snowbirds. And one of my customers actually said that to me one year. He goes, I hate having to wait for spring to come bring you my coach. I wish you could come to Florida and detail my coach. And this light bulb went on in my head. And I'm like, I would love to do that. I mean, who doesn't want to be in Florida in the winter when you live in the
Yeah.
north?
Yeah.
So I started a mobile business. Actually, I was probably was I about 6, 7 years into my business, I started going mobile to Florida. I bought a camper. At this time, my business is growing, and I mean the driveway's full. I'm working for car dealerships. Things were starting to really turn around for me at this time, but winters were still really slow. So I thought, well, shoot, I got a bunkhouse, a little travel trailer, and I had a power washer, I had ladders, I had everything I needed to go mobile to do RVs. So I went down to Florida. I got a Florida business license, got insurance. Actually, I learned a lesson on that too because I used to have Farm Bureau Insurance was just based in Michigan. I didn't realize that my insurance company only covered me to work in Michigan. So as soon as I got outside of the Michigan line, I wasn't covered at all. So I didn't know that. I had to end up switching, and I switched over to State Farm because they had national coverage. So I was covered in any state in the United States that I went into. So that's an important thing too. If you're a detailer that, lives close to, say you're on the Michigan-Ohio border and you detail in Ohio and Michigan, and your policy may only be covering you in one of those states. You never know. So I learned a lesson on that, and I had to get new insurance to cover me in all 50 states. And then I started going down to Florida for the winters and just detailing motor coaches and big coach parks. So I absolutely loved it. But then my business was growing and growing and growing, and it was getting so busy up north. Even throughout the winter, I was still getting a lot of people because I took on a state contract where we started detailing state police cars and all the state fleet, which is DHS, DNR, OSHA, literally all of the state fleet here in Michigan. So I got really busy with that. So it wasn't advantageous for me to leave that clientele base, because if they needed me, they needed those patrol cars back on the road, or I was going to lose that contract. So I had to be here to service those all year long. And so I decided to build the commercial shop. I was 9 years, I think, in the business, and I decided to sell my house. And I had troublesome neighbors that were constantly complaining to the county, oh, she's got shop vacs running all night long, she's got music playing, all this and that. So it was really stressful. Then the county kind of started buckling down on me and said, okay, you can't run a business. You're zoned residential. You're running a commercial, a business. You've got more than 2 customers, whatever the regulations were for my township. You were only supposed to have 2 cars in your driveway. Well, any given moment, I could have 10 or 11 cars from the dealership in my driveway. They'd go to the auction and just a slew of cars would show up. I'd wake up in the morning and my driveway would be
Oh,
packed. I'd be like, oh, thank you, Lord. I'm so blessed, but I'm so stressed right now. How am I ever going to do all this work? My back
holy
was hurting me. I'm
cow.
living on like Tylenol, yeah, it was crazy. So my neighbors were complaining, and I'm like, I don't want to turn business away. I want my business to grow.
Yeah.
So I ended up praying about it, and I put my house for sale. I said, okay, Lord, I'm going to make a big move. If it's meant to happen, just guide this thing. So I thought, well, I put my house on the market. I have a real estate license too from back before I was lending. I used to sell real estate, and I always had my license in escrow, so I knew how to list my house and put it for sale on Zillow and take nice pictures and do a good write-up on it. So I thought, well, I'm going to give it a year. If my house doesn't sell in a year, it's not meant to be. So I took these great pictures of my house and I posted it all on the internet. And that week, I got a phone call about my house. I got messages. Within 3 weeks, I had 2 or 3 full price offers. Bottom line is my house sold in 2 months from the time I listed it to the actual closing date. It sold so fast. And I was not prepared for that at all because I didn't have anywhere to go. I'm like, what am I going to do now? This was so unexpected. So I ended up leasing a car wash in my town because I couldn't close my business down. I still needed income. I still had to do my work, but I had to be out of my house. So I ended up renting a local car wash, and I started doing my detail business up at a car wash while I designed and built this detail shop. So my detail shop, the first floor is a full commercial detail shop with an office, with multiple offices in it, actual like a storefront for my product line. Then I have a wash bay, a full RV sized wash bay with everything you need in there, from oil and grease separation to all the city and county regulations, water system filtration, like everything beautiful in my wash bay. Then I have my dry shop, which is where we do, all the interior work and polishing and ceramics and all that stuff. So that's my main floor. Then upstairs I actually live. It's like basically a barnuminium design, but I call it my shop-a-minium because it's basically a commercial shop with a whole house upstairs. So yeah, there's like 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, like a
So
full house
literally no
upstairs.
commute time. But okay,
No,
so
I just go down the stairs and I'm at work.
how do you separate work and business, like work and life? Like, how do you do that when you live there?
It's really hard, but I absolutely love it because, with being a single parent, so my kid would be sick or something, I don't have to take off from work. I just run up and down the stairs, check his temperature, make sure he's drinking his Gatorade, and keep on working. It's worked amazing for me. I am so happy to have this. It's like my dream come true.
Hey, someone just actually commented it would be great to see a tour of the shop on her YouTube channel. We need to
Oh,
plan
I
that.
would love to. I would love
Maybe,
to. I would love to do that. Maybe not right at this moment, but
yeah. No, but let's plan that. Maybe we'll try to do a StreamYard, but you can like walk us
yeah.
around and show us your shop. That would be awesome. Just because there are a lot of people that probably have the same kind of dream as you. I mean, to have
Hmm.
a house above your shop, I mean, my garage is back there, and even that gets hard sometimes for me to separate like personal life and work. I can't imagine having a shop that big. But you have a training facility, don't you?
Yeah, I'm in the middle of building a brand new building right next to this one on the same property. That one is quite large. It's this building here is about 9,000 square feet, and I think that one's like 11,000 square feet. So it's big. Yeah,
Now, are you
that
gonna
is.
rent that out to other people, or is it just for you?
No, I'm not renting it out to other people. That's a barnuminium design too. I call it a shopominium because the front part of it is a huge garage. You can fit semis, RVs, literally the biggest boats you could think about. The garage door on that is 16 foot tall and 24-foot wide. So literally anything that will go down the highway is more than going to fit into that new shop. And it's a warehouse for my products. And then the back of it actually has a full basement under this thing too. So the back of it is where my new daycare center is going to go. So there's a whole daycare center also in this facility. So we have this is called a multi-use property right here. It's my residence, my detail shop, my warehouse training center, and daycare center, all
We
on the
should
same land.
just call it like Kellyville and just everything Kelly. That's awesome. That
Yeah,
is awesome. So,
the daycare is a crazy story. My daughter found out she's having a baby, and there's a real lack of daycare in this area. I'm talking just like there's no nice centers. There's a bunch of little home-based daycares, but we're not from the area, so that's really scary to leave your newborn, your baby somewhere that you really don't know the people. They can't talk and tell you how their day was. So that's scary as a parent, especially a brand new parent. So um, she kind of wanted me to babysit, and I'm running all these companies. I'm like, I wish I could, but I says, how about this? How about we build our own daycare and we could pick the best people and we can design it just the way we want. So that's kind of how the daycare thing came about. So it's turning out to be such a blessing. As a matter of fact, I'm hoping to be open. We're painting. The flooring's getting ready to be laid in there. The trim work, the appliances are getting ready to be delivered out there. So that should be up and running hopefully soon. I'm really praying for an open date of November, but at the absolute latest January on that, because we have to go through the state of Michigan, all the daycare licensing stuff, the city, the county, fire marshals. There's a lot involved in that. So I could write a whole book on just like experiences of opening a commercial daycare center.
well,
But yeah, that's
plus you just opened up Rebel Axe.
yeah,
So
Rebel Act is so fun.
someone just put
Hmm.
down here bowling alley. Is that next?
No. Well, Rebel Axe is like a bowling alley, but with axes, I mean, you got targets and keeping score, and yeah, it's a
I mean,
breath of fresh air.
I am kind of like just in awe of everything that you can do and the passion that you have, the energy that you have. You must have really good bed at night. But so as far as growing your detailing business, like at what point did you, I know you were kind of forced to go from a home-based business to kind of growing
Yeah.
because of neighbors
Mhm.
and all of that situation, but
Mhm.
how did you go from having a detailing business to then a brand? Like what made you want to start your own brand? And I know that right now there's a lot of people kind of white labeling stuff, from let's say B&B blending or different blenders out there, and you can just, throw them a little bit of money, they'll put your name on a label. Is it something like that, or did you design all of these chemicals like specifically? And
Mhm.
I mean, I don't need to know the exact number, but I'm sure it's expensive. But like, how expensive is it for those that realistically say, one day I want to have my own brand? Like,
Mhm.
realistically, how much money does it take investment wise to do that? And like, what made you go that route?
Well, the reason I went that route is because I'm getting older and my body has taken a toll after detailing for almost 14 years now,
Mhm.
and I had to figure out something like I was always taught in lending and in business school, you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket, right? I mean, whether you're building a portfolio for retirement, you want to have some diversification, right? So I knew that And for a while, all these years, basically all my eggs have been in my detailing basket. That was where I was just dumping all of my time and energy and resources and everything into detailing. And then I started having some health issues. And this is kind of where the product line came in, because being around harsh chemicals, not wearing my PPE, which nobody talks about this stuff in the industry either. You have to protect yourself. I was using harsh acids, all kinds of aggressive cleaners that I wasn't using a mask. I wasn't using gloves. I have a lung issue now, not severe, but I do have a lung issue. And I also have a liver issue. I was having some symptoms few years back, and I went to my doctor and they did blood work and everything like that. And they said my liver enzymes were really off. And she's like, do you drink alcohol? Like, because my liver was like the consistency of a severe alcoholic. And I don't even drink. I was raised in a very strict Christian Baptist home. Like, we didn't drink alcohol. I mean, I'll have a few drinks, a glass of wine, a few beers here and there, whatever. And I went through a little period of my life of hardship where I was, maybe drink 4 beers a week or something like that, but nothing. Yeah, nothing that would justify my liver to be this bad of condition. And she says, let me guess. She says, are you a hairdresser? And I said, no, I'm not a hairdresser. Why? And she said, these types of livers are in hairdressers because they're around the perms and all the hair dye and stuff in these solutions, and they're not wearing their PPE. So she said, besides an alcoholic, a hairdresser has the next worst liver. And I said, oh my Lord, I am developing, working around chemicals, developing chemical product line. I'm around harsh chemicals all for 14 years. And she said,
are you
yeah.
saying the chemical decons that we're using are destroying our lung or our livers because they have like the same perm solution in it?
Not the same perm solution, but they're harsh chemicals.
They're
Have you ever
similar.
used like an acid? Yeah, it's some of these harsh chemicals. In Michigan, we use a ton of acid to clean the vehicles because we get brake dust from the road salt and the little orange specks all over the cars. And the only way to really effectively get that off, I mean, you can clay for hours and hours and hours on end and break your wrists off. But we use a lot of acid here, unfortunately. And when I was detailing from home, I would go to the local car wash and use this acid. They don't have proper ventilation. Half the time the doors are down on you and it's like you're just dying breathing that stuff in. So yeah, people don't talk about that. The PPE is so important when you're using some of these harsh chemicals. So that's when it became kind of a passion of mine to get these little labels. You see that right there, non-hazardous. See that little green symbol there? So this has become a huge passion of mine. And not all of my products are non-hazardous, non-toxic, but if they're not, they're just slightly over the scale. Like my rock star right here. This is my bug remover. This stuff ships out every single day across the country on my web store. Honest to goodness, this goes from New York to California to Wisconsin to Arizona and Florida, like every state. I think we have a huge amount of this actually going to Utah right now. So thank y'all in Utah. We ship there massive amounts of this. So like that whole word of mouth thing, I think somebody tried it and then they're telling their neighbors and their brothers and sisters and cousins and everybody else, because we ship this stuff all over the place. But this is just slightly over because I still want to have a product line that's going to work amazing. And, people are going to really like the results, but be as safe as absolutely possible for the user, especially for the user that's going to be detailing 6-7 days a week, like some of us are, So
I need to order more of that, by the way.
What's that?
I need to order more of that, by the way. I'm almost out.
Oh, Lord, we go through gallons and gallons. We actually go through 5 gallons of these at a time in my detail shop. Like, we just use a ton of bug remover from probably April or May all the way till November. I mean, just depending on how much people wash their cars. But I literally couldn't do my job without that product. I don't think it's I used to scrub bugs for hours. I'd go to the car wash, I'd try all the ones I could get at Walmart and stuff like that, because I live in a real small rural area, so we didn't have, any kind of detail supply stuff back then. We had Walmart, and we finally got AutoZone. So AutoZone started stocking some little bit more professional products, but back then it wasn't much. And I used to get the turtle wax stuff, which nothing against turtle wax, but I'd spray it on there and wait and scrub, and I'd still have a ton of bugs there. And when I told my chemist, when we got talking about products, and he's like, what's something you really want to do? And I told him, you know, if I could just make one product, it would be number one, a car wash soap, which this is like a strong runner up to the bug remover. But I said, after a car wash soap, I really need a bug remover, something that actually works, because I do everything on the market to try to get these bugs off, and I'd still go back to my garage and I'd scrub and scrub and scrub hundreds of bugs off in the grill, especially those honeycomb grills. Oh Lord, those would take me hours to get the bugs out, and I lost so much time just working on bugs. So yeah, this bug remover is a lifesaver. But I have 15 products now in my lineup that are my products are all trademarked, patented products. They all have this really cool thing right here. You see that? It's a barcode. They're sold in tons of stores across our area. Of course, my web store, the barcoding was huge. A lot of people have like the white label. You obviously aren't going to be able to get a barcode on that, which that kind of separates, I like to say, the men from the boys. But do you see that? That was the most expensive part, probably about. But
Oh, I
every
know.
one
I
of
mean,
my products, every
being
one
an
of my products
affiliate
have.
with being an affiliate with Car Supplies Warehouse, there's a couple of the newer brands that are coming out that they don't have that, and it's kind of I don't want to say a nightmare, but it's been difficult for the bigger shops to be able to sell them because they don't have a barcode system. So you're already at an advantage right there than some of the other brands that I've tested. So
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
awesome.
that was huge. Yeah, that was huge. So my products are in, so that's one of my goals, is just to keep growing my product line, because I have a huge passion on these products. I personally have had my hands in designing these. I always tell everybody it's really exciting. It's kind of like a recipe, like a banana bread, or say like a cookie, you know, like a chocolate chip cookie. You've got to have your flour and your sugar and, you know, your baking soda and baking powder in order for it to be a cookie, and some probably butter or whatever like that. So it's kind of the same thing with each product, whether it's a degreaser, whether it's, you know, a car wash soap or whatever. It's got to have like its core ingredients, and then you kind of just build from there. Like you know, I wanted this to be a wash and a wax. So there is a ton of carnauba in this bottle, to where you almost don't even have to wax your car. There is so much wax in this wash soap. So I wanted a lot of surfactant. I wanted a lot of foam to really be able to encapsulate that dirt and, you know, safely remove that from the car. So there's so much that goes into actually building a product. Yeah, you have to have your core ingredients, right? And there's not a whole lot of changing that. But what there is a lot of customizing is obviously the fragrance. My chemist always tells me, I feel like I'm working with Bath and Body Works when I talk to you, because, or when we design something. So I'm like, I want it to smell good, because I'm way more apt to want to use a product that smells good and doesn't smell like something I need to clean my toilet with. You know, I want it to smell pleasant and enjoy working with it. And of course, I like them to be nice colors. And so he gets a kick out of that, because he's never worked with another female. And he has many, 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 many products in all different industries, from hospital strength cleaners to, oh golly, windshield wiper fluids, to all kinds of, I don't even know what all of things that he's actually designed. But so yeah, I have so much pride in my pride in my product line, and I really feel like they're the best products I've ever used, honestly, or I wouldn't spend the thousands of dollars. I mean, I have a huge bank loan. I'd love to be able to say I own this free and clear, and I don't owe any money on it, but I owe a lot of money on my product line. With anything, when you're going to build a business, like, yeah, I started my detail shop with, like I said, Q-tips and toothbrush in an old shop vac. So basically, without any money, I started my detailing business. But in order to grow my detailing business, I had to really spend money. You know, I ended up liquidating the last little bit of my 401k, because I had to claim a hardship. I had to keep my house out of foreclosure, number one. And I really wanted to buy, you know, like a commercial steam cleaner. I really wanted to buy a better shop vac. I wanted to, you know, take more classes. I knew education was the key, and I'm still super passionate about that. I'm constantly taking classes. Right now, I'm working with Dave Ramsey, doing his master financial coaching class, so I can coach under Dave Ramsey. Next week, I start a really exciting program with Christy Wright. She used to work with Dave Ramsey. She's an amazing financial lady. So I am constantly trying to take window tinting classes, paint correction, ceramic coating. Like, I've been all over the country taking classes, and I absolutely love doing that. And building my knowledge. And as I built my knowledge and gained all these certifications, guess what came with it? More money. And my business just kept growing, because I had all these amazing services to continue offering besides just interior and exterior detailing. Then I went and learned how, you know, got engine certification and biohazard certification, where I could start doing like all the gory stuff, the bodily fluids. And we designed a product for that. My biohazard cleaner, which is super popular for stain removal, odor removal.
Love that stuff. It's awesome.
Yes, I love it too. We designed that product because of the state police cars. Bless those guys and gals' hearts because they get some real messes in there. I don't understand it. Like, do they pick people up and they instantly just have to like go to the bathroom in their car? Like, seriously? Or vomit? They're just, yeah.
Wow.
So we needed something safe to be able to clean up those cars, and there wasn't a lot. I mean, I wanted to grab bleach, honestly, and bleach the car down, but the interiors are black, and I knew I couldn't do that. But as a mom, what's the first thing you want to grab? Bleach, when you got to deal with vomit. So yeah, my biohazard cleaner is safe for all surfaces. It doesn't discolor anything. It's amazing enzyme cleaner. So that's just a cool product in itself. But yes, it's a lot of risk. It takes risk in order to get the reward. I really believe in that. I take crazy risks, like this new building I'm building, that I designed that actually in 2019. And then the whole COVID thing hit and it just flipped my world upside down. And, I had a foundation in the ground. I couldn't quit. I had blueprints drawn up. What am I going to do? So, I've been praying a lot to get through that project because it took a big spin in the wrong direction. Lumber prices have been through the roof, and all kinds of crazy things have been going on with that project. So yeah, there's a lot of risks involved. If you want to be mediocre and play it safe, then that's what you're not gonna grow your business like you should. You have to take risks, calculated risks. You don't want to take super crazy risks, but calculated risk when you're ready and you feel like you're ready to do that. But yeah, I'll tell you, you got to
So
embrace your dream.
I know that when we were chatting prior to this conversation, you were telling me a little bit more about how you've been learning about the psychology behind managing business finances. Could you share a little bit more about just what you've taken away from that education that you're learning?
Right. There's a lot of really good golden nuggets, I call it, in these different classes, and it seems to be like financial problems are often rooted in a couple different things, and a lot of times it's different issues in your life, relationship issues. There's always a deep rooted problem with finances. There can be people problems, perspective problems, processing problems. Like, sometimes people just don't know. They maybe their parents weren't good with budgeting money or handling money or managing money. So they didn't have opportunity to learn that. I think our school system is really failing our youth because these kids are coming out of high school per se with a trigonometry and calculus and all this other kind of stuff, but do they know how to balance a checkbook or make a budget or understanding how to pay credit cards and how to handle a credit card? And I see so many young people, they go to say Victoria's Secret or the Buckle, and you go to the checkout and they say, hey, do you want to save 20% on your order today if you sign up for this card? And if they're 18, they're like, heck yeah, I want to save 20%. Let me go get a couple more pairs of jeans and 5 more bras. So before you know it, and then they get this card. Okay, so they go buy their Buckle order on a card, and they don't have to pay anything that day, but they don't realize, okay, you're going to get a bill in the mail, and you need to pay that off when you get it, or you need to make the payment. And a lot of times it just goes on their dresser or it gets thrown in their glove box of their car or whatever like that. They forget about the payment altogether, and they don't make that payment. And then before you know it, they might forget about that card altogether, or they start making late payments, or they just completely forgot about it. And guess what happens? Their credit is in the toilet. They already have a bad credit score. So then, and they don't realize it until they go in to possibly get a car loan or potentially want to buy a house or something when they're getting a credit report pulled. And they're like, oh my gosh, I forgot about that Buckle card from 4 years ago that's still outstanding and I forgot to pay off or whatever. It's a real problem. People don't understand how that can affect them for so long down the road. I always recommend the app, Credit Karma app. That's fantastic. It's free. It can help you basically keep track of your credit, what's coming in. Every time I use my card, it's linked to that. I know there's other different apps, stuff like that out there, but that's the one I use. It's really friendly. It gives me notifications when my score goes up or if my score goes down, and it tells me why. It's a great tool for keeping track of your credit. But yeah, so there's a lot involved with that.
So we know, and I'm just going by a lot of what people have shared with me. I get people messaging me all the time that are wanting to start a detailing business, are looking for advice, and sometimes it can be scary when you're starting a new business, and sometimes you do have to take on debt. We're fortunate that this is an industry that really doesn't require a lot of money to start. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
think I started with about $500, and that was maybe extreme, of
Mm-hmm.
products and things like that. I was using a turtle wax hand buffer, McGuire's products that I picked up off the shelf, maybe, a couple different, I'd go to a car show and there'd be a pop-up stand, and I was like, ooh, I'm going to be fancy and get Duragloss or a brand I've never even heard of because that's like exotic or something. I'm going to be more professional. But for me, the biggest struggle when I first started out was trying all the products and getting almost in debt with products because there's this constant, I don't know, I think we're just obsessed with testing out the next newest, hottest thing on the market. And I actually started a channel because I had so much product that I was like, well, I might as well just share my experience with other people. But it can take a good bit of money to start it up. And
Mm-hmm.
as far as, as you continue to grow your business, because, one thing that I've done, and like you, it sounds like you did, over time wanting to get better equipment,
Mm-hmm.
and just become more professional when it comes to that. Like recently this year, I just invested in redoing the garage, the floor, the cabinets, things like that. I've purchased, more industrial grade equipment so that way I can handle wear and tear, but that takes an investment. How do
Right.
you manage debt when it comes to a business? And I know we talked a little bit as far as like tax write-offs and things like that. What are some ways that you try to save money at the end of the year when it comes to investing in your business? What are some tips or maybe things that have worked for you?
Well, I keep really good track of my income and expenses, which I go over this much more in depth in the classes that I teach, and I'm getting ready to roll out some online classes because I know there's a lot of people that have been asking me about that, and I go into extreme depth on it. But what I do, oh, I wish I had one of those boxes up here, but I didn't bring one. You know those little plastic boxes, like a little filing box, it's got a little handle on the top. You have one?
Like this?
Yes, exactly that. Yes. I
Yeah.
absolutely love those. You know, you put the little file folders inside there and the little tabs. So I keep one. I keep this for all of my businesses. I love these. Yes, you did it.
Mhm.
I'm so proud of you.
Oh, I bought them. It doesn't mean that I've used it like I should though. That's why we're having this conversation because I went out and bought all of the things to start.
Oh, I'm so
But
proud of you. That's the first step.
it's
It's great.
expensive to buy all that stuff.
It's so important. You'll thank me if the IRS comes and knocks on your door. You'll be like, oh man, I'm so glad I did that when I did it.
Well, when
Trust
one
me.
of those 87,000 IRS agents comes to my house, hopefully I'll take the few hours it takes to enter all of the previous information, and then I can just hand this to them and say, good luck.
Yeah, yeah, true, true. A lot of people say that like, oh, what are the chances that's going to happen to me? Well, what were the chances of going to happen to me? I live in a small rural town with a population of maybe 5,000 people. Why did they come after me? I don't know. You know, I really to this day I have no idea. Somebody probably turned me in that didn't like me, or that's how it usually goes. But if you have a Facebook page, if you have you're doing business out there and you're promoting yourself on social media, you're out there, you're doing business. If you're not doing business the right way and you're out there promoting that you're detailing cars and you're doing business, hello, you're open for audits and all kinds of crazy things to happen. Like people always say, oh, it's not going to happen to me. I live in a small town. Oh, it's not going to happen to me. I'm in this great big city with hundreds of detailers. Well, guess what? It happened to me in this little teeny tiny town I live in Michigan here. And it wasn't pretty. You want to talk about stress? That is stress at a whole different level when you're getting certified mail you have to sign for with lists and lists of things you got to get together that you don't even have a clue what half the stuff even means. Like that is stressful. So that's why I really want to put this together where I have a little list of things that I think are super, super, super important. Back to your question a few minutes ago about like the things I recommend for anybody starting a business. Okay. Number one thing I recommend is writing down your goals. You have to write your goals down because if you don't know where you're headed, how do you know when you're going to get there? Right. And I listen to a lot of podcasts. I love following like Terry Savelle Foy. She constantly talks about vision boards. I love, oh my gosh, I did a vision board at my old house when I first started my detailing business, and I wish I had it to this day. I think about it all the time because everything on my vision board has come true. I had a whiteboard in my kitchen by my telephone, and back then when you used the phone on the wall, you didn't have cell phones, weren't so much. This is 2009, at the end of 2009. So I got this whiteboard hanging in my kitchen where I look at it all the time because I talk on my phone and I'd be attached to the wall staring at this whiteboard. And on this whiteboard, I remember taking a dollar bill and I made it into $100,000 bill. This is after I lost my job. I'm literally bankrupt. I'm broke. I have no money to my name. I'm down and out, and I'm like just praying I can make $100,000 again. I used to make, over 200,000 a year, and then you go from that to praying you can ever make $100,000 a year again. So I had this dollar bill that I took a black Sharpie and I wrote 100,000 where it said $1, but I made it into 100,000. I put that on my whiteboard, and I wanted to make $100,000 in my detail business. That was like my goal. If I start this business, my goal is to make $100,000 a year. So that, and then I had a cutout of a magazine, it wasn't a detail shop. It was just basically what I built, but this is so much bigger. I have the picture saved in my cloud. I have to share this with you. It's really cool of what was on my vision board. And it was basically like a 2-car garage and then a little house above it. Now I have a 4-car garage, a huge office, and a big house above it. But it's basically all these things that were on my vision board that I looked at every day came true in my life and then some. Like I built a way bigger shop and I make way more money than the $100,000 now that I dreamed about then. But I really believe in writing down your goals because it's crucial, and write them down, look at them. If you want to get into doing a vision board, that is fantastic. I still do a vision board to this day. Now my vision board is actually on my screensaver of my phone, so I look at my vision board every day. And you're not going to believe this, I should share you my screen of my phone, because on my vision board, I made it a couple years ago. It I made it quite a while, but a bit before that, but it actually had a warehouse on there for my products, and it's exactly what this new thing is looking like, even bigger than what's on my vision board on my phone. So I really believe in writing your goals down and doing a vision board. After that, so you're going to write your goals down. You are going to get your business license or your DBA over at the courthouse. Go get your business checking savings account set up. Get a business credit card or business debit card, however you're going to do that. At least a business checking account, though, at the bare minimum. And then you're going to, possibly talk to a CPA if you want to set up a LLC, unless you're super savvy and you can set that up yourself. But that's a lot of paperwork. And I like to make sure when I'm dealing with the government or, the IRS or any of these other entities that I've got somebody else that's smarter than me looking over and making sure my I's are dotted and my T's are crossed, right? That's what those people are there for. And a lot of times you get a free consultation. A lot of the CPAs, attorneys, they'll do a first consultation for free. So it's well worth doing that. So write down your goals, get your DBA or business licenses, get your business checking account set up, talk to a CPA about structuring your business, however is going to be best suited for you and your state and your county and your business and your goals and all those types of things, because that's going to vary from state to state. And then you're going to want to set up a system for tracking your income, tracking your expenses. You're going to want to check into insurance. You want to check in insurance. I promise you it's not as expensive as what people think it is. It's well worth it. You'll thank me one day that you've checked into it and you've gotten at least the minimum coverages on insurance. And you want to be sure that you're paying your taxes. You get your CPA to get you your tax ID numbers, however you're going to structure your business. If you get into hiring employees, that's a whole nother ball game. You have to have workman's comp. You have to have, be paying your state and your federal taxes, your payroll taxes. That's a whole nother ballgame, and I always see my accountant for that. My accountant sets up my QuickBooks. I use QuickBooks for my payroll, and then she initially sets it all up for me with the tax rates for Michigan and for my state and federal stuff, all my AD numbers, and then I input my employees in there, and I personally print my paychecks every week. So I just go in. Once it's all set up, it's really easy. You just type in how many hours they worked, each person each week, hit view payroll or whatever, and then print pay stubs, and it's super, super easy, and archives all that. So I love QuickBooks for that. So those are my biggest top few things that I think are crucial for anybody starting a business. I don't care if you're, 18 years old or you're 70 years old and you want to start some kind of a business. You have to do these things. These things are crucial. And then we can get more into like the nuts and bolts of, I just really want to go over this income and expense thing because this is huge and it's super simple. And a lot of people overcomplicate things and think things are much more complicated than what they need to be. And it can be so simple, like elementary simple. This is basically how we do the income. So see, this is like an example of, it's backwards, but I think this is January 2020, for example. And then every day we write down what we took in. So this was like, I can't read it, but I think it says like January 3rd, $600. We took in a check number 3601. And then on the 3rd again, we took in a check for 200. And then they also paid 175 in cash. So their total must have been like 375. So I keep track of all my cash. And then I keep track of like if it's a check or a credit card transaction. But literally every single dollar that comes into my shop, every single day, we have a book for Royal Reflections when we sell product. We have a book for showroom auto detailing when we do our detail work, and literally every single dollar gets written down and accounted for, and it gets tallied up at the end of the month. So you take all your totals and you add it up at the end of the month, and there you go. So that is how we do the income. It's so simple, but you have to do it. You have to know what you have coming in, and you have to know what you have going out in order to do a budget. You can't do a budget without knowing what your income and your expenses are, right? And that takes a little bit of time. You have to have a few months into your business to be able to develop a budget. I think a year or so, really, because you get ups and downs and those peaks and valleys and stuff like that. So it's hard to do a budget. It's impossible to do a budget unless you know for sure what's coming in and out. So we do this for every single month. Like here's February, for an example, and then the same thing, what we took in cash, checks, credit cards, totaled up the amount at the bottom of the month. And then at the end of the year, I do this for my accountant. So then we take showroom auto detailing, income from sales of 2020. So this is all showroom auto detailing, January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September. And then there's a total down at the bottom. So you want to be sure that your income, this is our gross income, okay, is more than what our expenses are. Because if your income is less than your expenses, you are upside down, right? You're really in trouble because yeah, that is not good. And you can't run your business in the red. That means if you're spending more than you're bringing in, you're spending more in debt, like credit cards. That's where you're getting into a whole different mess, okay? So that's super simple, right? That's how we do our income on all of my businesses. We write down every single transaction, every single dollar that comes in, total it up at the end of the month, and then at the end of the year, put all that together and total it all up like that. And then I give that to my accountant, and she knows what my income is. And then we have all the proof, like it goes through the checking account. So we also have that for proof for auditing purposes. If they come in and they say, oh, you just said your income is this. Okay, here's my business checking account. You can look at every month and every date, or maybe, not every day do I go to the bank, but once a week or once every few days, I go to the bank and make these deposits. And these deposits are going to match what I've got on my statement right here. So it's all checks and balances, right? We're keeping track of it. It's shown in the bank account, and it's all legally available for inspection or assessment or whatever you want to call it. This is how we do the expenses every month. And I know people are like, oh, there's all kinds of programs out there for that. Yeah, I know, but I am not computer savvy. It takes me too long to input all that in. My mom is, late 60s, and she sits at the desk and she can do this for me. My mom helps me do this. She loves it. She's amazing at it. Her handwriting is really nice too. And so this is that ledger paper like you just showed that you had. This is let me see. So this is an example of like May. So we got the mortgage. I think that says mortgage. It's hard to read this. Then the auto payments, property taxes. What else do I have? Oh, insurance, home, auto, and life insurance, consumers, DTE, snow removal, lawn care. And then we have these categories up across the top, right? And then when we have a transaction for that, we put the date here, and then we put who it went to and what the amount was. So like Chase Bank, the mortgage payment was $1,750, so we know, and then we add all that up at the bottom, so all the totals are tallied up. So these are all categories that you can use on your taxes based on whatever your, if your accountant says. So we've got mortgage, auto payments, property taxes, homeowners insurance, or insurance on home, auto, life, consumers, DTE energy, snow removal, lawn care. We've got like cell phone, charter, Verizon, Secretary of State, repairs and maintenance, dues and memberships, ads and websites, supplies, payroll, QuickBooks, like all, I don't know if you can see all the categories there. Can you see them okay? And then underneath the categories, again, we list the date and who it went to and everything like that. And then more categories. So we got our city, sewer, and water bills. We've got our accountant. We've got uniforms, charity and donations, postage fees, attorney fees, travel and classes. And that's all my categories. So that's all the things I use as a write-off, okay? So I keep track of all of these expenses by the month. So we go through and we balance the checkbook at the end of the month, and we write down all of these things. Some months there's no, travel and class fees, or some months there's no attorney fees, but it's still, we just still categorize these fees across every single month the same. So when we do have something in that category, it's already right there and ready to go. And then at the end of the year, so same thing as the income, we compile all those monthly totals, and then we do a annual total. So it'll show like the mortgage interest, and these same things again, what I paid in payroll costs, auto payments, property taxes, and you can see right down the line, the exact same things that were on those monthly sheets are on my annual sheets, right? We got consumers, DTE energy, snow removal, all of those same things, supplies. So supplies would be, like you said, all of your supplies to run your business, your products that you're purchasing, all that stuff. So that's where that folder comes in hand that you showed with the one with the lid and the, your plastic little folder with your files in there. Every time I have a receipt, like my power bills, they go in there that month. So like we divided January, February, March, April, May, June, July, all the way through the year. January, in that file folder will be these pages right here. The monthly pages will go in each month, and then also the supporting documentation for that item. So the consumer's bill, if it doesn't come in the mail, you don't get a paper copy, you just print it off and throw it in the file. Same thing with any supplies we buy. So you go to, I don't know, even if you order anything offline, even if it's on Amazon or whatever, we print that out and throw it in the folder, so we have proof of our supply orders. You know what I mean? City and sewer water bills, if we buy shirts for uniforms, whatever we have, we put it in that file box. So in each month, January, February, March, every single month, we have our income documentation with the bank statement, right? So we've got these pages and then the bank statement in there for income. And then we have all of our expense charts with our proof of expense. So we put all of our receipts, whether it's Home Depot, Walmart, AutoZone, O'Reilly's, wherever, detailing, wherever you're buying your products from, that supporting documentation is in there to validate what you've claimed for expenses, because you cannot claim something without having proof, okay? So if you claim you spent $50,000 in products, but you don't have a single receipt to validate that, and you get audited, they're gonna be like, we want these receipts, and you have to come up with $50,000 worth of receipts if you've claimed that on your taxes, right? So whatever you're claiming, you need supporting documentation. So that little file folder works perfect. You put the year on it, 2022, put it on your shelf. Bam. You ever get audited, you just grab all them little file boxes. Here's 2020, 2021, 2022. When you got these little file boxes, you're probably going to be golden if you've been doing it by the book, if you've been accurately keeping track of these things, which is super simple. It seems overwhelming. It seems hard. It seems complicated. It's not. It's super, super simple once you get doing it. The first month, just like anything, it's, my daughter got a job at McDonald's when she was 16. She got irritated with me and didn't want to detail cars. She said, I'm going to go get a real job, Mom. And I said, okay, good luck with that, So she goes to McDonald's, and boy, she come home crying. She's like, there's so much to learn, like just trying to type in the orders, and, this person wants pickles, this one doesn't, they want whatever. And so there's any job you're going to do, there's that little bit of learning curve, but this stuff is crucial. This is like crucial, crucial, crucial. Income and expenses. Again, I don't care if you're baking cakes or you're running a DJ company or you're building custom cabinets or you're detailing cars. You have to know your income and your expenses. You have to know that. Your business is not going to grow if you don't know what you're bringing in and what is going out. You're going to get yourself in a big mess real quick.
Yeah. Well, I know we've been going for a little over an hour now. Are there other, I know you had quite a bit that you wanted to go over. I know that we had discussed as far as with advertising and things like that, what worked for you. I know for me, I've kind of shared my story in the past as far as, word of mouth, but Nextdoor app, Facebook business pages, Google My Business pages, and things like
Mm-hmm.
that. And I know you also, I mean, you just went over a lot of like nuggets that even just like I want to screenshot like all of the write-offs or the things that you claim for your business, because that alone, I was like, I didn't know there was that many categories.
And there might even be more. That's why I'm saying talk to your accountant. That's what I personally do for my business. I mean, there
Yeah.
might be other things you can write off. When you're home-based business. When I was a home-based business, I was able to write off a percentage of my property taxes, all kinds of percentages. So my accountant at the time came out and they measured up, like my garage square footage, I think one bedroom, because I used it for an office, and one bathroom. So they took that square footage of my house and then they took my overall square footage, divided it out, and they gave me that percentage. I think at the time it was like 30%, say, or 35% of my total bill. So 30 to 35%, whatever it was, they took from my power, my heat, my mortgage, my property taxes, all those things. Here, it's all write off because this is a 100% commercial facility. So it's a little bit different. But even when you're a home-based business, people don't realize there's a lot of things you can write off at your home business, that really help. Because at the end of the day, do you want to pay in more taxes than what you have to? Because the write-offs so you got your gross income, and then you've got all your write-offs, and then you've got your net income, right? So your net income is what you're going to be paying taxes on. So a smart business owner wants to get their net income down as low as possible. I mean, you still want to show you're making money, but you still want to use as many write-offs as you can. And that's where your licensed CPA will come in play with, your state regulations in your township, city, whatever regulations for your area, because it can differ significantly from state to state and stuff like that. So I always recommend for, those types of things, get a CPA. It's not very much money. They don't charge a lot, and it is worth its weight in gold to have that information. And they keep up on all the current tax laws and current rates. That's their job. So it's really wise to seek their advice when you're setting up your business or paying taxes or understanding what write-offs are allowable for your situation, whether you're mobile, home-based, commercial-based like I am. It varies. But I think there's a lot of things people can do that they just don't know that's available to them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as far as, going over income and expenses, because I think when I reached out to you, my biggest struggle has been in that area, just because I have a lot of hats that I'm wearing lately, and it gets overwhelming. And I'm ADHD, and the things that are boring to me or that are a little bit overwhelming, I just tend to push off and ignore. And this is not an area that I can really push off and ignore. So I thank you for sharing your what has worked for you and your process, because I think it's very simple that really anyone can thrive with their business and be able to manage it.
Yeah, and once you get the basics down and you want to get into a fancy system, whether it's QuickBooks or some of these detailing softwares out there, or all different kinds of industries have different software setups and stuff, fine, do it. Whatever works for you. If you're tech savvy, all for it, but make sure you're backing that up so that when the day comes and you need it, it's available to you,
Well, and you and I talked about that, because I was using AutoServe Pro last year. Loved it. Was able to keep track of all of my customers' income, scheduling as far as things like that. It even did auto text for me. And then they ended up closing. So then I had to switch everything over to a new scheduling software. I lost everything that had been with AutoServe Pro. So all of my tracking that I was like, it's there, it'll be fine. Thankfully, I keep a calendar, I keep a log of everything, so it's not lost for all eternity. But you can't always bank on the software. I think that's
Yeah.
why something like this is helpful, because you can't always bank on the software that it's going to be there forever.
I know.
Because
And during the time to keep setting up and losing
yeah,
information. I just went through that with my cell
tell me
phone. I
about it.
just got a new cell phone and I lost like everything in my phone. I'm like, this is so frustrating. I download all these apps again and try to remember my passwords. It was so time consuming. I'm like, this is time I could be spending doing anything else besides setting up the cell phone again. Like, this is so
Mhm.
crazy. And plus, I have older ladies like my mom. Most of my secretaries are in their 70s. They're amazing ladies, but you're not going to put a program like that in front of them. Them ladies know how to do this kind of stuff, and they know how to do this kind of stuff real good. You don't give them a computer program, they'll probably all walk out and tell me to
Well, and I'll
good
be
luck.
honest, like I've tried out Orbis X, I've tried out Urable, I've tried out Detail Bookie. I landed with Detail Bookie because I felt like it was at least manageable with my brain, because too much stuff overwhelms me.
Yeah, me
And so, I
too.
mean, it's worked for me, and as far as scheduling and keeping track of income and things like that, there's certain things that I miss about Auto Surf Pro. I kind of, if anyone's out there, bring it back. Like, it was really good. Um, but no, I mean, it's really good things to keep in mind. You don't want to always rely solely on software to keep track of your stuff, just
Mm-hmm.
because what happens if you hit a delete button or that software goes under and you lose everything. So
Yeah,
I think,
yeah.
paper and pen, it might seem basic, but there's benefits to it. So I think
Mm-hmm.
that,
Yeah.
that's definite things to look into. But as far as uh, managing business so that it doesn't manage you. And that was really the key for me, because it is to the point where there are times that I'm overwhelmed with everything, that I just kind of get into a mental paralysis. And so, like, your tips, I think, have definitely helped kind of get me past that point
Oh,
of
I'm glad to hear that.
feeling overwhelmed and feeling like, okay, like, this is manageable. Take it into small chunks, just every day write down what comes in, write down any expense that comes through, and then add it up at the end of the month, and you're good to go. You're not having to go through, because there
Yeah.
are times I do pay quarterly taxes, as far as for sales tax use, but there have been times that I'm having to, like, go back 3 months at a time and, like, enter every stuff, and it takes hours on end to do it, and it's taxing and stressful. Whereas if you kind of keep
Mhm.
up with it, it's a lot more manageable. So
Oh, it is. I used to do it at the end of the year. So I'd throw everything in a tote, like a big Rubbermaid tote that you would use for moving. I would throw everything in there and then like December 31st, sit down on my living room floor and just start sorting stuff out. You want to talk about, oh my Lord, that is definitely the wrong way to do it. Do not do that. That is a terrible idea. Don't do
Oh,
it. So
well,
now, yeah, yeah, that was a disaster. That would take me weeks in pulling my hair out, trying to figure out. And then half the Home Depot receipts and stuff, like they're all faded. I can't even see the price on them anymore because there's so much. Oh, Lord. Yeah, don't do that. Do it.
so
Trust me, every day. It's so easy. You take in a check, you grab your little spiral notebook and write down, I took in check number, blah, blah, blah. Bam. The minute you take in the money, have your little folder there with your mobile, keep it in your vehicle, keep it in your mobile unit. Same thing. Open up your little Rubbermaid thing and with the handle on it, and you got all your little folders in there, and you got your spiral notebook, and you just write down, I took in 600 cash, 1,400 cash. I put 2,500 on Square because they ran their credit card. Whatever you do, I mean, it's so simple. Once you get into the habit of it, what do they say? It takes 30 days to develop a habit, right? So after 30 days, it becomes so simple. You can develop any habit or break any habit in 30 days. That's it. Super easy. So if you do it every day, you'll love it at the end of the year.
Well, I think this is a great way to kind of bring this to a close. You've had tons of experience, trials, errors. You've learned along the way. You've had many successful businesses, and you're going to have even more successful businesses. I'm so thankful for you sharing your knowledge, your experience with all of us. I think it is encouraging, and at the same time, just a great reminder that really, with just hard work and a
Mm-hmm.
dream, you can really make anything happen. And so, thank you for
Mm-hmm.
sharing your journey and what God has done in your life. Um, I know that you mentioned that you might have some business classes coming up. So, when you have that information, please let me know, and I can share it on this channel for those that maybe want to take this further, get a little bit more practical advice on how to grow their business. And any other classes that you have, please by all means share, because education is definitely the key to growth. So
Right. I have a whole entire curriculum designed from everything from budgeting, how to open a business, how to design a business plan, obviously more in depth on profit and loss, taxes from income, employees, unemployment, property taxes, sales taxes, how to price jobs, business insurance, how to remain essential in a non-essential economy. I mean, just tons. I have just lists of things that my classes include, and even more basic things on opening a business, choosing a business name, targeting customers, who's your target market, assessing your finances, how to get loans, where do I go to get money? I have this fantastic business idea and I don't know where to get money from. Like, I have tons of resources and information and tips and all kinds of suggestions for all kinds of stuff like that. So yeah, I'm really excited to be able to start offering that. And I really hope that, this has helped somebody along the way. If I just have one couple things left to say, is just like, stick to your dream, keep your vision fresh, write down your goals and look at them every single day, and be patient. Be patient. And don't give up. Don't give up. Perseverance and patience. That's what I really stress. Perseverance and patience.
I'll add one more thing to that. Find people that are successful that can be a mentor to you, because that is one thing that has made all the difference for me, is just finding people that are where I want to be and surround myself by those people, because
that's huge. You are who you surround yourself with. It's psychologically, scientifically proven. The people you surround yourself with, it's what you're going to be like, right? They say if you surround yourself with 5 millionaires, you'll be the next millionaire. If you surround yourself with 5 crackheads, you might end up being the next crackhead.
I surround
not a good analogy, but
treating kids all day. So here's to hoping that I can pull something out of that. But anyways, well, thank you so much. And I know that there were quite a few questions that people asked, and just for the sake of not like going back, I will just say, for those of you that tuned in live, we're going to go back through your questions and answer them, because I know some people had questions, Kelly, for you as far as your brand.
did they?
As far as if you ship internationally and different things like that. And so hopefully all those comments will show up on YouTube. And if not, I will for sure come back through and answer them. But thank you to everyone for tuning in live. Thank you, Kelly, for your time. I know you put a lot of time into this even before we even got onto the screen. So thank you for sharing everything. And if any of you guys, like always, have questions, let me know in the comment section down below. But thank you, guys. We're going to call this one a wrap. I think this was awesome. Thanks, Kelly.
Thank you so much. Have a good night.
All right. Bye, everyone. We'll see you in the next video.